It's helped me with ways to communicate with people.
I think the Gazette is a really valuable link between the community and the school. It's a school-run paper, and for a lot of people in the community who might be older, they don't have kids in the school anymore, they don't know what's going on, it's a good way to keep in touch.
Brings a lot of the people together to live in town.
I just enjoy hearing about what the kiddos are doing and how they express themselves.
It's provided the kids a way to connect to the community that they otherwise did not have prior to the Gazette. And it's given them a way to contribute also to the community.
You have students who have their own roles in the Gazette. You have editors, and then you have the higher parts, business production, graphics. They all work together, they communicate.
I have to coordinate between editors and production. My main job is to collect articles and put them on the computers for production to use. Editors gather and write stories, and then the stories are brought to production, who does layout on the computer, pretty much puts the paper together. There's graphics, who deals with pictures and photos and stuff like that.
And what I do is I keep track of all the sales. I fill out deposit slips for the town clerk to keep track of our records. I work on fundraising ideas. We do a lot of phone calls contacting businesses that are local to advertise in the Gazette.
I get ads for the Gazette, I call advertisers, I process their checks once they come in, and try to think of ways to get more money. It's non-profit, but we definitely try to support ourselves.
And we have a website. They make a page for the Gazette about the Gazette and I guess about different issues that we have.
The Gazette's been around for probably about 7 years. We've just completed our 6th year, complete school year of publications. We publish 3 issues a year. The Gazette began back in 1994, 95, following a student survey where students had determined through surveying community members that communication and knowledge about the school was a real need in town. So in the course of 6 or 7 years, the operation of the Gazette has expanded and evolved significantly to the present, where we have an advisor system in place, adult advisors. There are 6 or 7 of us, each working with different departments.
We meet once a week from 12:30 until around 2 with 7th and 8th graders that have applied for a job and filled out a job application, which the advisors have screened and talked about, and then they get the job. Almost everybody gets the job they ask for. We work primarily with the editors in getting articles ready.
We call them and ask them, like, can you write an article about whatever we were looking for? And other times they just send us in stuff.
Editors have to prioritize it. Like if it's a 1, it's very important and they want it to go in.
Usually we decide, but Miss Muriel just comes up with stuff for us, and then we just take whatever comes to us. And sometimes we get our own ideas.
I write about the Guilford Library. I'm writing an article right now about Vermont and Guilford history, the Historical Society, different events that are going to happen in Guilford.
Most interesting article I think that we got this year was the Franklin barbecue. It was about this really big barbecue. They had 2 men came home from the war, and their father gave them this really big barbecue with like everybody there, and they grilled or fried this really big cow named Sam.
For editors that's in charge, Bobby's our master list consultant. He's pretty much the one who gathers the articles up. Our advisors help us out a lot with typing articles and helping us meet the deadlines, giving us new ideas. Yeah, reaching community members for us.
When we began to do the Gazette, we're very clear, I think, that it was initiated by adults as a question to students. Do you want to be part of a community newspaper? And is that something that we're going to do together? When they said yes, over the course of 6 or 7 years, it became more of a question of how do we operate the newspaper and stay organized.
We've achieved a kind of an interesting dilemma about how much control adults exercise and how much students do, and we've tried to give them a voice and lead them toward accepting responsibility for running the paper.
And we've sort of come around to the point of thinking of it as participation, where everyone in a very democratic way has a strong voice. Ultimately, the advisors have a stronger voice, but with that comes a responsibility to hear the student voice.
Some decisions are made by advisors. A lot of it's made by the students.
If we want to do something, we bring it up in the big group meeting. We try and work it out so everyone's happy. So I think everything we do is basically a group decision.
We talk to our editors and assistant editors and our advisors.
Communication is very important in the Gazette. Without it, we would be sort of disorganized. If we have a deadline we have to meet, then we try our best to meet it.
Deadlines are really important. Deadlines drive the newspaper, and so we kind of work backward. We set up a schedule with the kids so that we all understand when articles are due and by when they have to have submitted.
Sometimes it could be hard. There could be argues about things. Some people are sort of frustrating maybe at some times, but at other times they could be really helpful. And they can help me, and they could show me things like maybe I missed.
I know in our department, teamwork is really important because me and Joe, if we're not exchanging information, that'll be lost.
You know, if you don't communicate, then obviously the paper isn't going to work. Like, you know, if I sell ads and I don't tell Shannon that I sold ads and they're not going to be in the paper, it's really not going to work out very well.
If I didn't keep in touch with Joe, I wouldn't know who we had for advertisers and who I needed to bill, and if I didn't bill anybody, then we wouldn't have any money and sort of go downhill from there.
I think I'd say one of the biggest keys to the way the Gazette functions is teamwork, and I mean that in terms of teamwork as an advisory staff, because I think what's made it most successful has been the development of the advisory team, as well as teamwork amongst the students. And that's what kind of led us to this model of realizing that, as in any other business, this paper needed to be divided into departments, and that the departments needed to communicate with themselves, but then there needed to be interdepartment communication as well.
Sometimes my assistant would figure things out without me, and then I'd learn more things. They were just sort of doing things with the computer, seeing what they could do, what they could make out of it, and that would be, I would learn some things from them which I couldn't do, or they helped me to figure out sort of more interesting ways to put the articles in, or neat designs to put around the pictures that I never thought of doing before, so they make the paper more creative.
I think that that's probably one of the key pieces to the Gazette and making it a real-life experience is the idea that this really is teamwork, that no one person is responsible for any department, no one person is responsible for the paper.
It gets out to the community by mailing it, so we all have our own folding deadline where we fold the paper, get it all set.
They finish their work, the thing is actually printed and it just needs to get folded and shipped out, and those seem to be kind of celebratory events that require a lot of work, but also the advisors have helped make sure that kids have a chance to celebrate as they're preparing it for mailing.
In the old days, in the beginning of the Gazette, we often were lucky to get the paper together and publish it, and we didn't often stop and reflect, and sometimes didn't celebrate, and those are really important characteristics we've come to believe of a successful learning experience, not to mention any kind of experience, I think. So we've done that much more intentionally in the last 2 or 3 years.
Some students probably think it's maybe a waste of time, but for other students it would be more important to them because it reflects on what they've been doing throughout the year.
In terms of assessment for student learning with the Gazette, we connected to the report card system we have for 3 or 4 years. Each advisor works with a certain number of students by department, and the students will do a reflection piece of their own at the end of each marking period, and then each advisor takes that reflection and knowledge that they bring to the situation, having worked with the student over 3 or 4 months, and puts it together to write an evaluation, a performance evaluation of the student. For the marking period, it's attached to the report card and goes home with each student.
It's very important for kids at 7th and 8th grade level to understand that they are joining a community that's bigger. They need to start feeling at this age that they're both adult and responsible and able to function outside the realm of school.
I think it'd be important to the community because it will give them information about important dates that some people need to go, like meetings they need to go to. But it also gives them information about events that are happening, like the Green River Dam situation or the new Welcome Center. And then people will see what's happening in our community, make them more interested in it.
There's a real difference between a school newsletter and a community newspaper. The fact that it's a community newspaper, even though it doesn't come out very frequently and is, it's not the same as a daily paper, it's about the town, that has made a tremendous difference to the townspeople and has also been able to show the students that they belong in a bigger context.
Well, my grandmother likes it because she gets to see what we're doing in school.
Yeah, I think they like to read it and look at what the school's doing, look at what other people in the community are doing.
Many of us look upon the Gazette as the official organ of the town of Guilford. The last year or two we were involved, like other communities, of putting up E911 signs so that the fire and police and ambulance people could find individuals. And frankly, we used the Gazette to communicate with our townspeople. Another thing that came up in the Planning Commission when we asked some people where do they learn about things going on in Guilford, and their answer was almost always the same. The first thing they mentioned is the Gazette. It's the principal organ for disseminating news to all our households in town.
The local town meeting one, we did try to get especially a specific article that might have been of real interest to people into the paper, and then whatever candidates, and try to encourage them to write an article or let the kids interview them or something so that it would be put in the paper, because that is about the only source you have for people to understand who is running for local offices.
For the last, actually, 3 years or more, the Planning Commission worked on a new town plan. And it's important in developing a plan like that these 9 people who are appointed by our select board have communication with the townspeople. We use the Gazette to reach townspeople about this sort of information, because we work on the theory, the more people know about things and can get involved, the better off it will be in the long run.
If they didn't have a paper here, they may have an idea of what's going on by word of mouth, but I think it's a lot nicer for them just to sit down and be able to read the paper.
And we all like the fact that the kids at school are the ones that are doing it, because not only are they learning more about perhaps publishing a newspaper, but they're learning more about their town as they go along.
10 to 1, you don't know who your neighbor is. And I think that's one thing I miss more than anything else, is the fact you don't have close neighbors anymore.
Well, I thought it was interesting to see the children were interested in the history of Guilford. I thought it was great.
One of the things that I have enjoyed the most is when the young people at the school have gone out and interviewed some of our townspeople, principally some of the senior citizens. We have quite a few families who've lived here all their lives and literally for several generations, and the Gazette has had some fascinating articles about interviews with these folks.
I enjoyed the one when they did the article about Bob Gaines. Emery Evans' article was really great.
Every once in a while, somebody will mention somebody. There'll be something in that somebody's written up about. Martha Joe's. Right off, my brother John had to tell me some stories about Martha Joe's, because he remembers my father bringing hay down through there. Always stopped to see how she was and if there's anything she needed.
With the history of the town, the kids have gotten involved thanks to the Gazette, with working with the cemeteries and plotting out maps and getting pictures of some of the older places in town. And and getting them on the computer, which I think has been a real positive for us because we have been working to get all our cemetery records on the computer, and we're collating what the kids have done with the work that we're doing.
So these kids are gaining confidence and responsibility and things that are important.
The seniors probably are more vocal about it because it is really a community source for them, and they're the ones that a lot of them are alone, and so this coming into their homes is kind of touching the community more and getting a wider picture of things. They're looking to know what's going on around town, and they love to have the children around and know what the children are doing.
Children need to know that somebody loves them, somebody cares, that you can't live all alone. You need friends, you need your relatives, you need people, and it helps you to grow.
When we began the Gazette, we were looking at it as a newspaper connected to the community that met a need, and our thinking really evolved over the last 6 or 7 years to the point where we really saw a lot of opportunities, K to 8, not just in the 7th and 8th grades where the paper is created, to use the paper as a vehicle to connect students to the community.
Again, I was scared to do anything because I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if I was doing my stuff right, typing the articles up in the right format. So I was just really scared, and then I got used to it.
Often during the summer, we would sit down with classroom teachers in the 7th and 8th grades with our administrator, Mike Friel, and talk about ways to enhance the Gazette as an activity and make it more connected as an academic part of students' programs here. We knew all about the social aspects of it, and we knew about the real application of knowledge aspects, but trying to connect it to the curriculum was a lot trickier. We've tried connecting it specifically to content areas. That's been semi-successful, but overall not as successful as trying to connect it to some of the broader goals, standards particularly that are cross-disciplinary. Personal development, social development, communication, reasoning and problem solving, those kinds of standards.
I think it gives you a lot of writing skills. And I think if you really want to be a writer, you should work on the Gazette.
Well, I think it's a pretty good experience because I'm aspiring to be an author when I grow up, and to be creative writing and poetry editor is really helping me find my way. Yeah, she did a 3-part story in the Gazette. Third one's coming out in the last issue of this year. And I think she did a good job on that mystery. Thanks.
Well, at the beginning of the year, or when I started with the Gazette at least, people weren't, girls didn't want to work with boys, and boys didn't want to work with girls, and stuff like that. But it's changed because here I am working with 3 people that practically hate me, and we actually kind of get along when we're working.
I think I've learned a lot of things pertaining to a business that you really don't usually learn in school.
I think it's a good opportunity to learn about computer use, writing. There's a lot of business you can learn about, a lot of things depending on what you're interested in. I think it's a good chance to help provide for the community.
I think it helps the students to feel like they're more involved in it.
I've learned that it can be hard work working on a paper, especially with people that you don't usually work with.
I think an experience like this is real helpful because it gives them an idea of what they're going to have to do in future life. I mean, the Gazette's not like your basic sit-down work. It's more of an actual job that you have to do.
Well, when I think of schoolwork, I think of textbook work or desk work, but you're really talking to different people, getting their opinions, and looking in books and doing things with your friends, and you can't normally do that in classwork.
I think it is probably the best system we have for middle school students to have kind of a hands-on, real-life application of skills.
The big change I've seen in students that I've worked with is that many of them are students who are not terribly motivated in their academic classes and who only do things when they're asked or required to do things. When you give them a Gazette job and they're on a team of peers working towards a common goal, they become self-directed. They define the jobs that need to be done themselves. They prod each other. and they produce without any adult actually trying to get anything out of them.
I think some of the most dramatic changes I've seen have occurred in students who just never have seemed to find a way to ever excel or shine within a regular classroom or curriculum. And when they first start off with us are quite reticent, but over time they begin to realize that they do in fact have something to contribute, and that they can be a part of a group, and that they have some good ideas, and with that confidence then you see them really turn into this person who can kind of take charge.
Working on the website, since we all started from ground zero, none of us knowing the software, none of us knowing the skills, we've been teaching each other all the way. Complete level playing field. We all know about the same amount. We all can help each other about the same amount. So these students are experiencing themselves as my peers. I'm really just another Joe on the Gazette team. And the way we're trading information and tips is completely different than the way we relate in a classroom.
I think the teachers really were into it and would give time to the students who would need to work on the Gazette.
I think one of the most rewarding aspects of the Gazette, from my own viewpoint, and I suspect from the viewpoint of the other advisors, is the collaboration that takes place.
Before we were kind of isolated in the classroom. There were only one or two of us, and we felt like we had to sort of do it all and figure it all out, and it was a burden because there were deadlines and the kids had too much work to do, and so did we. But having extra help from people that I didn't get to meet anyway during the course of my daughter's time at this school was really special.
It provides another set of eyes for everything that's going on, and it allows you to do what you're always trying to do in your teaching every day, and that is step back and look more objectively, but with a team of people who can reflect even what you're saying, what you think you're seeing.
Because it's really given all of us an opportunity to really experience a healthy working team.
It's a very different kind of relationship that I like. I like being able to work side by side.
And I think each of us brings our own adult or teaching needs to the equation, and I think we've all grown as a result of it.
The difficulty is balancing the kid-centered, it's ours, and it already exists, we're stepping into it, here's your role. Yes, you can change something in this role. You can change something within the parameters of your job, but you may not be able to change the whole structure unless, as a total group, you can build that consensus.
The Gazette, in some shape or form, not necessarily how it currently exists, needs to continue to be part of Guilford Central School and the Guilford community, because it's such a great hands-on, applied learning activity.
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that you have to be very clear on your goal, and you have to make absolutely certain that the students are clear on what's the goal of this paper, what is its purpose, why are we even doing this, what are we trying to do it for.
I was just going to say that I hope they keep up the good work. It's worth it. It's so nice to see the children and get acquainted with them. As older people, we don't know the children one from another. The acquaintance of them stopping by, it really makes you feel younger.